Khilafah of Umar ibn Khattab, he became an old man, very old, weak man, and he was expecting death to arrive on any day. So he was ready for death. Umar ibn Khattab notices that Khuzaymah has a piece of land that he has not cultivated. He has not used, he has not benefited from. So he says to him, أَفَلَا غَرَسْتَ أَرْضَكَ, why don't you cultivate your land? He said, إِنِّي رَجُلٌ كَبِيرٌ أُرَائِ الْمَوْتِ أو أَرَى الْمَوْتِ أَتَرَاءَ الْمَوْتِ. I'm an old man and death is looming on the horizon for me. I could die any time. So Umar ibn Khattab, when he heard this, he insisted that he actually cultivates his land. So he says to him, قُمْ فَغْرِسْهَا, go and take care of it, and I will help you out. Umar ibn Khattab, the leader of the Muslim Ummah at the time, the Khalifa, who has to discharge all of these great responsibility of an expanding nation at the time, he himself puts the time to help Khuzaymah ibn Thabit cultivate his land, so they both cultivate it together. And this is a very clear and practical implementation of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he said, إِذَا قَامَتِ السَّاعَةُ وَفِي يَدِ أَحَدِكُمْ فَسِيلَةٌ فَلْيَغْرِسْهَا إِنِ اسْتَطَاعَ أَنْ يَغْرِسْهَا فَلْيَغْرِسْهَا. If the hour falls, يوم القيامة falls, like towards the end of time, and you witness it, you recognize that's the end of time, and this is Al-Qiyamah, it's a matter of seconds, and we would make the shift into the last day. Now that's the end of this life. The Prophet ﷺ says, and you have something to plant in your hand, plant it. Plant it, although no one is going to benefit from it. It's not even going to grow as a plant or a tree. It's not going to have the time, because that's going to be the day of judgment. Yet the Prophet ﷺ says, plant it. And in saying this, the Prophet ﷺ is planting in our hearts and our heads an attitude towards goodness in general. That whatever is good is intended in Islam for itself, for its own merit, its own value. Sometimes we don't appreciate an act of goodness because sometimes we might not see the benefit of it, or we might not see the point behind it, or the people who would benefit from it, or what's the outcome. Yet the Prophet ﷺ, he recognizes this, but he is saying there's another aspect of goodness, that just by getting an opportunity to do something good, even if you don't see the fruits of it, and you are sure that there will be no fruits of it, still do it. Because that's a reflection of your inner state of goodness. And that shows an inner state in Islam towards building things and cultivating them, regardless whether our efforts are fruitful or not. And this takes me to my point here in this khutbah. It's the main thing. It's one dimension of life. It's a very important dimension of life. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us, He designed us in a way, He destined us to live in that way. And this is basically that we are limited by other creatures that govern the very nature of our lives. And these great magnificent creatures are space and time. So we are bound by time. We are bound by this linear spread of time. We live this life through a time scale. And we can only look at time from one direction, as one dimension. That we have the past, we have the present, and we have the future. It's a linear process. That's how we relate to time. Yet time itself, being intangible, is still a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not arbitrary in the sense that we live within the boundaries of time because Allah designed us that way. Allah is not limited by time Himself. That's why He knows the past, the present, the future. He knows that. The past and the future are the same for Allah. He has access to all of them. But we are bound by this linear nature of time, because we are the creation of Allah and we are not perfect. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it clear here that although sometimes we think we are the best creatures, we are the most intelligent, we are the most sophisticated, we are human beings on top of this hierarchy of what they call evolution or existence, right? But we know as Muslims that Allah created us as a special creation. That's right. But Allah is sending a strong message to us that when you become full of yourself, and you puff your chest up, you're thinking you're too big for this universe and for the creation, or you're too great and too sophisticated to believe in a God, in a creator who brought this universe into existence, who runs the affairs of this whole universe, of everything in the creation, and he runs it perfectly according to his plan. Nothing gets out of his plan. And that the end of everything is to come back to Allah. And that's why when we face a calamity, we say, Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We belong to Allah, and unto Allah we shall return. That means I don't even own myself. I don't even own my future. The reality of me is that I came from Allah. He brought me into existence, and that's why I'm experiencing life. That's why I'm able to see you and you see me, and I can see whatever I want to see in this world. That's why I'm experiencing what we call life. That's by virtue of Allah bringing me into existence. Then people use all of these gifts of Allah, their consciousness, their mind, their thought, their experience of life, to deny the existence of Allah. But Allah is sending a strong message that when you think you are magnificent and so big, look at the simple creation of Allah, time. You can't reverse time. You can't go back to the past and change it. You can't. You're bound by it. It governs you. You can't do anything about it. You can't even stop time. Try to stop it, you can't stop it. People are dying, people are paying millions and billions in order to stop the process of aging. They want to stop time, they want to enjoy their youth. But no matter how much they invest, it's inevitable for them to go through the stages of life as they were designed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and ultimately they will end up dying and leaving this world. And then they will be held accountable for how they related to this life. So that's that kind of dimension. We are bound by it. And we're also bound by space. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not limited by those. He's not defined in terms of space. He's not defined in terms of time. هو الأول والآخر. He's the first and He's the last. He's not bound by time. There's no beginning, there's no end for Him. So the beginning and end is something that's designed for the creation. It has a beginning and it has an end and it has a progress. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is way beyond and way greater than all of these parameters and all of these measures that are used to help us relate to life. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in miracles in the Quran, beautiful words, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by time. And He says, wal asr, by time. And it's not an empty kind of word. It's to draw our attention to the reality of this life. The Prophet ﷺ points to the fact that most people, because this powerful creation that governs our life is so tacit that we don't even feel it. We don't feel it. We don't even realize that time is passing by. We don't know. We don't even understand what's the texture of time. We don't know. In science, they're trying to understand what time is and how it relates to space. And that's why you find it in the relativity theory. But still, they don't know what's the fabric of time. And they say, there's nothing, time is an illusion. It's bound by space. And then they say space is an illusion and it's bound by time. So even a simple creation of Allah that's intangible, we're unable to perceive it, most of the time we're unconscious of it, governs our time or governs our experience in this life. We don't even realize it. Yes, yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by it and He says, wal asr, innal insana lafi khusr. In other places Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by different segments of time or certain aspects of time when He says, wal layl, by night, wal fajr, by the dawn, and so on and so forth, to draw our attention to the reality of time. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ in the hadith reported by Abdullah ibn Abbas and collected by Al-Bukhari, the Prophet ﷺ says, نعمتان مغبون فيهما كثير من الناس. Two blessings from Allah that most people don't make good investment of. Most people lose them. Most people become fooled in their approach to these two great gifts and blessings from Allah. الصحة والفراغ, good health and time. Having time. People don't realize it. People don't realize that. This is why Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhu, he said, إِذَا أَصْبَحْتَ فَلَا تَنْتَظِرْ الْمَسَاء. When you wake up in the morning, if it's morning time, don't expect to be alive when night time comes. Be ready to lose or to get out of this dimension that we call time. Sometime, at some stage, at some point in time, you will be taken outside of that linear passage or structure of time. And you don't know when. Because that exit ticket, only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows it. You don't know it, I don't know it, no one knows it. Doctors don't know it. Doctors will say sometimes, you have 3 weeks to live. And some of those people lived for years later. Sometimes doctors, you say, oh, you're in very good health. You walk out of the clinic and something happens and you lose your life. Because the moment of death, the moment of life is bound by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's something by Allah. But He gives indicators sometimes in terms of health, in terms of the state of your body, the state of your heart, the state of everything within you. These are indicators, but they do not define when you live and when you die. So the Prophet, Abdullah ibn Umar, he says, إِذَا أَصْبَحْتَ فَلَا تَنْتَظِرِ الْمَسَاءِ. If you are in the morning, don't expect to live till the night. Be ready to leave. وَإِذَا أَمْسَيْتَ فَلَا تَنْتَظِرِ الصَّبَاحِ. If you make it to the evening or to the night time, don't expect to make it to the morning time. That means be ready all the time to leave. Be prepared to leave, because you can leave at any time. وَالْمَوْتُ يَأْتِي فَجْأَةً وَالْمَوْتُ يَأْتِي بَغْتَةً. Death comes as a surprise. Out of the blue it comes into your life and it takes you away from here. So, and the Prophet ﷺ made it clear that we will be questioned on the Day of Judgment by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mainly about our time, because that's the context, that's the frame within which everything happens in our life, and whatever we do it within that context. And the Prophet ﷺ says, لا تزول قدم عبد يوم القيامة حتى يسأل عن أربع. The feet of son of Adam, of one of us, will not move on. That means from the point of reckoning and hisab, when you will be held accountable. You will not be allowed to step forward from that point, from that spot, until you are questioned. And questioning means you'll be asked about everything. That means for example, you will be asked about your life. Every second you will be asked about it. Notice the passing of each second. Watch them on a clock, how they pass so slowly, seemingly slowly. You will be asked about each tick. What did you do? What did you do with it? And you have to provide an answer for each one. لا تزول قدم عبد يوم القيامة حتى يسأل عن أربع عن عمره فيما أبلاه. About his lifetime. Your lifetime, what did you spend it in? What did you spend it in? And the funny thing about time and about your life is that you spend it involuntarily. You don't have a choice to hold it back. It is being spent. It is being spent. The question is not whether you spend it or not, because it's being spent without you playing a role there. But the question and the test is, how do you spend it? And that's why Al-Hasan al-Basri, rahimahullah ta'ala, he tries to give us a powerful perspective sometimes. When you create a new perspective, you help people see things in different light, so they realize them. So Al-Hasan al-Basri, rahimahullah, says, Ya ibn Adam, O son of Adam, إِنَّمَا أَنْتَ أَيَّامٍ. You are merely a bunch of days. That's who you are. You think you are blood and flesh. You might sometimes think you are what you own. You might think you are your degrees and certificates and your accolades. You might think you are your titles. You might think you are your house, your car, your clothes. You think your reputation. You think you are your brand. You think yourself, all of these things, you identify with the wrong things. He's saying, no, wake up, open your eyes, and open up to the reality of who you are. إِنَّمَا أَنْتَ أَيَّامٍ. Your reality is that you're just a bunch of days. كُلَّمَا ذَهَبَ يَوْمٌ ذَهَبَ بَعْضُكَ. Every day that passes, that's part of you taken away. It's never going to come back. فَإِذَا ذَهَبَ يَوْمٌ ذَهَبَ بَعْضُكَ. Any day that passes, that's part of you has been lost forever. So he defines us by this powerful creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's time. So when we look at ourselves, our lives as a bunch of days. So For example, when someone celebrates their birthday, you're celebrating that a whole year of your life has been taken out. It's been lost. The question is not whether it passed or not, is how did you spend it? How did you use it? How did you benefit from it? And that's the ultimate test of this life. How are you going to spend this time? How are you going to spend yourself? Because you are merely days. You are time. You are seconds. As the clock ticks, part of you has gone and will never come back, and so on and so forth. That's why the early generations were very careful with how they spent their time. For example, Abu Hatim al-Razi, rahimahullah, one of the great scholars of hadith, his son Abdul Rahman says, my father was so careful with his time that when it was time to eat, he would get me, or he would have me read for him, so he could listen and learn. And when he has to fix something at home, he gets me to hold the book and read for him. And even it gets to the stage when he answers the call of nature, he walks into the washroom, he gets me standing outside, reading for him, so he could listen and learn. That's how obsessed he was with his time. Now, I'm not suggesting you do this. And this is a person who's been very careful with his time. But what I'm saying, don't waste your time. Don't waste your assets. Don't waste yourself, because that's who you are. Make good use of your time. Another great scholar of the scholars of hadith, Ibn Abi Hatim, that's another scholar. Ibn Abi Hatim, he's the one who wrote the great book of Al-Ilal in hadith. So he says that we spent in Egypt 7 months. So he came to Egypt to learn from the scholars. So he says during the day, our time was completely engaged and full with classes with the scholars. And the night time we spent it, writing down our notes, writing them down, arranging them well so we could benefit from them in the future. And then this is how our time passed. And he said for 7 months we never ate any cooked food because we didn't have the time. No cooked food. He said one day we were going to halaqah and the teacher did not show up because he had some mitigating circumstances. So we passed by the market, we saw some fish. So we said we haven't eaten any kind of meat for such a long time. Let's buy fish. So they bought fish, him and his friend. They bought fish. He said, as soon as we reached home, it was time for the next class. So we went to the next class. He says, for 3 days, we didn't get the time to clean the fish and cook it. So he said, we realized after that, it was going to smell. So they ate it without cooking it. They ate it without cooking it, he said, because we don't have time to cook it and we didn't want to waste it. So we ate it. So these were people who were careful with their time. And you and I should be careful with our time. Who you spend it with. What do you spend it on? What do you do with it? What have you accumulated in terms of assets for the day of judgment, that when you stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah asks you, as the Prophet ﷺ said, He will ask you, عَنْ عُمُرِهِ فِيمَا أَبْلَهِ, your lifetime, what did you waste it? What did you spend it in? You got to have something to show Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Otherwise, you have misused the great blessing of time and you will have to pay for it. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. How can we make use of our time? And in other words, as Al-Hasan al-Basri said, how can we make use of ourselves? Because we are just time. We are just time. If you don't have a goal in your life, if you don't have a clear, well-defined vision in your life as to what you want it to amount to, what you want to do with it, and that thing should be linked to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even if it's a worldly gain, even if it's a worldly success, even if it's your career, it should be linked to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so it serves both purposes. If you don't have a clear vision about that, you are bound to waste lots of your time. Lots and lots of your time. you won't even feel the passage of time. You won't even feel the fact that you're wasting yourself and you're wasting your time and your asset, and you will wake up, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, at the time of death. حتى إذا جاء أحدهم الموت قال رب ارجعون. When death comes to that person and says, oh Allah, send me back. Why? Because you have wasted your whole lifetime. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you enough time on this earth. أَوَلَمْ نُعَمِّرْكُمْ مَا يَتَذَكَّرُ فِيهِ مَنْ تَذَكَّرُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, haven't we allowed you to live in this life long enough to remember the reality of your life and to respond to Allah? Haven't we given that enough to you? Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in another surah, كَلَّا, that you will not be sent back. وَمِنْ وَرَائِهِمْ بَرْزَخ. There's a screen, there is a blockage that these people cannot go back into this life. That's it. That's the end. And this is why the people who will be destined to the hellfire, people who made the worst use of their time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about them, يَقُولُ يَا لَيْتَنِي قَدَّمْتُ لِحَيَاتِي. He would say, I wish I have made good use of my time for my life. Because life is in the hereafter. I wish I have collected enough assets for my life in the hereafter. I wish I've designed my life well for the sake of Allah. I wish I have prepared myself for this life on the day of judgment. I wish. But there's no you're not going to come back. No one is going to come back. And that time could come any soon. Just last Saturday, I prayed janazah on one young boy, 18 years old, just joined university, 18 or 19 years old. He had an accident and he passed away. He had the whole life, promising life in front of him. He was very optimistic about life. He just started school. He just started school in University of Ontario in Oshawa. And they just moved there. And he himself had an accident with his brother. His brother was in a critical state. I don't know what happened to him, but this brother passed away. Only 18, 19 years old. So, I mean, he's not different than you and me. Death will come. And most time it comes unexpectedly. So be ready for it. Be prepared for it. So how can we make good use of our times? Define a vision and a goal for yourself to do for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number two, look at the people you spend time with. How much do they value time? If they are time wasters, I guarantee you are a time waster as well. If you don't spend time with people who are careful about their time and about their life and about making sure that their life is productive and fruitful and beneficial and has meaning, then most likely you will be like the people you hang around with. So be careful about the people you spend time with. And this is something it's a very unconscious process. You don't know how this contamination happens. So the people you spend time with, how much they value time, most likely this is how much you value time. So make sure that you spend time and that you choose as companions and friends people who truly value time. They value themselves, they value this beautiful asset from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they want to make good use of it. And the third thing is turn to the creator of time. Turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ask Him to bless your life and to help you understand the value of time and to make good use of your time. If you're spending time talking about others, backbiting them, if you're spending time watching a lot of TV, if you spend a lot of time on social media trying to peek into people's lives and see what they do and what they ate and where they slept and what hotel they were in and where they traveled to and who they talked to and what kind of restaurant they went to, you're absolutely wasting a very valuable asset trying to peek into something and understand something that doesn't benefit you in the least. And it burns your time and it burns your life. So make sure you put your time on something that's valuable and beneficial. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us aware and conscious of the value and time and make good use of it. Allahumma ighfir lil mu'minina wal mu'minat wal muslimina wal muslimat al ahya'i minhum wal amwat. Allahumma ighfir lana dhunubana wa israfana fi amrina wa thabbit aqdamana wa ansurna ala al-qawmi al-kafirin. Allahumma kun lil mustad'afina min al-mu'minina fi kulli makan fi mashariq al-ard wa magharibiha. Allahumma kun lahum wa la takun alayhim. Allahumma ahqin dima'ahum. Allahumma sun a'radahum. Allahumma ihfaz alayhim dinahum wa imanahum. Allahumma hdi shabab al-muslimin. اللهم اهد شباب المسلمين اللهم اشف مرضى المسلمين اللهم أبرم لهذه الأمة أمر رشد يعز فيه أهل طاعتك طاعتك ويذل فيه أهل معصيتك. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
استقيموا واعتدلوا استووا. سدوا الخلق. حاذوا بين المناكب والأقدام. سووا الصفوف. Straighten the lines and close the gaps. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. والفجر وليال عشر والشفع والوتر والليل إذا يسر هل في ذلك قسم لذي حجر. ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بعاد إرم ذات العماد التي لم يخلق مثلها في البلاد. وثمود الذين جابوا الصخر بالواد وفرعون ذي الأوتاد الذين طغوا في البلاد فأكثروا فيها الفساد فصب عليهم ربك سوط عذاب. إن ربك لبالمرصاد. فأما الإنسان إذا ما ابتلاه ربه فأكرمه ونعمه فيقول ربي أكرمن. وأما إذا ما ابتلاه فقدر عليه رزقه فيقول ربي أهانن. كلا بل لا تكرمون اليتيم ولا تحاضون على طعام المسكين وتأكلون التراث أكلا لما وتحبون المال حبا جما. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. كلا إذا دكت الأرض دكا دكا وجاء ربك والملك صفا صفا وجيء يومئذ بجهنم يومئذ يتذكر الإنسان وأنى له الذكرى يقول يا ليتني قدمت لحياتي فيومئذ لا يعذب عذابه أحد ولا يوثق وثاقه أحد. يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Inshallah, we're still collecting money for Halab Idnillah, Syria. So for those brothers who want to donate, please pass by the office, inshallah, whatever you can, to put in that cost, barakallahu fikum. And during the week as well, you could drop it off anytime, inshallah, as you want. Please do donate generously for it, barakallahu fikum. And our halaq will be 7 o'clock tonight, inshallah, as usual. And also, for those who are interested in Umrah, we're doing in March Umrah group, inshallah, in the masjid. And it's going to be from March 8th to the 20th. It's 10 days, 5 days in Mecca and 5 days in Medina. For those who wants to come as families and friends please do and come see us inshallah and register as soon as possible if you're interested. Jazakumullah khair. Barakallah feekum.